What's up? I'm Beastmaster from Carnival Spirits.
So glad to have you on. And today we have a great subject. We are going to break down a list of movies, our top 10 ish, but breaking it down of movies that are a constant rotation. So, off the bat, I want you to go first, and the floor is yours. What is your list?
All right, so am I going to give you my full list or am I just going to give you the first movie on my list?
We'll go with the first one.
Okay. First movie on my list is from 2000 and it's directed by Cameron Crowe. It's called Almost Famous. It's almost a semi-autobiographical movie because when Cameron Crowe was a young man, he was a aspiring writer, and he actually got hired by whatever it is, Rolling Stone, and he would interview bands back in the 60s or 70s, and so this movie is about a kid who wants to be a music writer, and he follows his favorite band, and he gets wrapped up in the world of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, groupies, scratch that, band-aids. And it's so fascinating to me because, one, I love the music of that era, like Black Sabbath, Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin. And the fact that Cameron Crowe put this movie out, it's so amazing to me. All the characters are so real. I relate with the kid because I was kind of, I guess, a late bloomer myself. He's way younger than everyone in the movie. He's got a huge crush on Kate Hudson's character, who is, in love with the lead singer of the band. If you can't relate with that, that friend zone situation where you're just pining for the girl of your dreams, and there's so much about the movie, especially the band members themselves and the in-house fighting and the management, and then the finale where they're all on a plane that's about to go down, which kind of harks back to the real life story of how like Buddy Holly died. They all think they're going to die and they all start confessing to each other. But you have to see the movie to see how that pans out. And also another fun fact is that Cameron Crowe, he actually went undercover in high school when he was like in his 20s and wrote Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He actually went to a high school as an adult because he looked young, and he just like wrote down what everyone was saying, and he wrote that crazy fucking awesome movie. So this movie here is kind of like his version of his life. It's so dope.
I have not seen that movie in a long time, and you've inspired me to go watch it again because it's been a minute. And we'll go back and forth, and so I'll go with my first one with my list, Rocky.
Nice.
John G. Avildsen directed it, written by Stallone himself. This movie is one of those movies that is a constant rotation for me because I'm really inspired by the underdog. I'm really inspired by the fact that, especially Stallone, who wrote this script and was like, had the balls to be like, no one else is going to star in this script but me. I wrote this movie and I am going to be the star of it. And for the time and place especially in the 70s, that was real ballsy because he's not the most handsome like person they were looking for in the 70s, or no, he wasn't that look they wanted or something like that. They could have gone with like a John Travolta or somebody more, but the fact that he had the balls to be like, yo, I got this script, and everyone's like, we want this script. They were going to throw money at him like crazy. He could have just took the money and walk off, but he had a dream. He had the aspect of star in this movie. And let alone not even to star in this movie, but to make this movie huge, iconic in so many ways. And every time I watch the movie, I believe in myself a little bit more every single time I watch it because I just look at him and then, I found my Adrian, for the rest of my life. And, it's one of those things. And we all have a Paulie. We all know a Paulie in our lives. Yep. And just that idea of you get one shot, you get one chance. And the fact that he was picked to do this fight, this exhibition, all because of this person of Apollo who had this ego. And he was just like, the Italian stallion. It sounds like a damn monster movie. It's just one of those cool things. One shot in life. And that's what I think that movie really boils down to the acting, to where the story's going. Rocky's not that bright of a bulb, but he has a huge heart and a huge spirit that carries him throughout the whole thing. And he's a genuinely good person. And you see that kind of just grow throughout the film and from the starting to the finish, especially when like the starting scene is him boxing, overweight, and then when he meets Mickey kind of guides him, and you know he gets to the final fight with Apollo, and what's so great is, like, I don't want to do a spoiler in any aspect, but the fight at the end, I finally got to see this movie on the big screen. And even though I've seen this movie billions of times, I finally got to see it on the big screen last year. And the fight alone, if my adrenaline started pumping through me, and I was like, even though I knew the outcome of the fight, I was still like, come on, Rocky, kick his ass, you know, and rooting on. And people in the theater are looking at me like, this guy's fucking crazy. You know, this came out a long time. I was like, no, shut the fuck up. Like, Rocky's going to do it, you know. That to me is a sign of a great movie to have on rotation, you know, just the inspiration and the motivation to be like, yeah, you know what? All I need is one shot. And Rocky is that movie.
You know, that movie gave us Eye of the Tiger. That song alone embodies the spirit of the movie. Love that song.
Eye of the Tiger is great. All right, and your next movie?
All right, my next movie is from 2002, and it's a Spike Jonze film called Adaptation, and it stars Nicolas Cage and Meryl Streep and Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage plays two people. He plays twin brothers. It's another one of those semi-fictional things where the screenwriter, Charlie Kaufman, he wrote the movie Being John Malkovich. And so this movie is about himself after he has become famous for writing this hit movie, Being John Malkovich. And now he's got writer's block. And he's trying to write his next big hit, and his agent is crawling up his ass, and he's picked this novel called The Orchid Thief. And he just really loves the book. He wants to write the screenplay just right. He's just like this big nervous Nelly. And he's got a twin brother. Now, Charlie Kaufman doesn't even have a brother. So he invented a twin brother for himself to play off himself. And you never know what you're going to get with Nicolas Cage. It's either going to be a pile of shit or it's going to be brilliant. And this is one of the brilliant performances in his career. And it goes through a lot of twists and turns. It's a comedy, but it is very, very emotional. And every character it's just a character study. As someone who is a writer and kind of a neurotic person, I identify with this movie on a very deep level. And that's all I'll say about it.
Good old Nick Cage. Like you put it perfectly. Either you're going to get the good Cage or you're going to get the bad Cage. And either or, though, it's still a fun ride with him as an actor.
Right.
All right. My next one here is definitely a movie that, even though it is 2 hours and 50 minutes long, it came out in 1979. It was directed by John Carpenter, a movie called Elvis, starring Kurt Russell. I don't know if you've heard of this movie, but I'm a huge Elvis Presley mark. And this movie has been on constant rotation since I was a child. You basically are seeing his entire career. And with Kurt Russell, all I see now is Kurt Russell as Elvis Presley. If they ever did another movie, I would be like, well, we need to make Kurt Russell younger so he can play Elvis Presley in the movie. We have this de-aging thing right now, so if we can make him Elvis again, I'll be totally perfect and happy with that. But it's definitely a depiction of the life of a rock and roller. You go through, you know, what he went through as a kid. You go through him living in Mississippi, and then you go into him becoming this sex icon and controversial figure just for shaking his fucking hips. And, you know, that era of music and how it transformed, and it just forms into, like, you get to see that rise. And then all of a sudden you see that pummel of when he gets drafted into the army, and how much that affected him, and him being gone that long, and how much, like, when Beatlemania happened and how the world almost kind of moved on without Elvis. And it was a crazy time, and he got drafted, and, you know, and he did his American duty, and he went and did what he did. And during that time he lost his mom, and that's where you kind of just feel like he just kind of lost it. and it's just great tragic story. And he meets Priscilla over there, so there's good, there's bad that comes out of him being in the draft, being drafted. And then you fast forward into like him going to Vegas, him revolutionizing the game, even though we already had Frank Sinatra who played um Las Vegas. We already had the Rat Pack and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. But somebody like Elvis taking on constant shows and doing these shows. And now if you look at Las Vegas now, you got your Lady Gagas, you got your Britney Spears, you got these guys that know that's a good gig to go. You're going to go to Vegas. And then you kind of just see, then you don't really see his death, but they kind of just play it off. But it's just such a great movie. If you love rock and roll, this is that movie of like where it started, seeing this figure grow, and Kurt Russell's performance as Elvis, it's undeniable.
I can't tell you that I actually remember seeing that movie, but I probably have back in the day. But it reminds me of Great Balls of Fire when, well, never mind. It's a completely different movie, but I love biopics. So that's an old one, though. Kurt Russell's a legend.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it. It's like I said, it's a good 2 hours and 50 minutes, but it's a 2 hour and 50 minutes that it's just a nice, straight, long ride.
Nice. All right, my turn?
Yep.
My number 3 movie on the list, and this is just, my movies are in chronological order, not in order of favorites, but this one's from 2004. It's directed by David Russell, or David O. Russell. It's called I Heart Huckabee. Now, this movie is super strange, and it's kind of even hard to explain. The main character, Jason Schwartzman, who is actually Nicolas Cage's cousin in real life, fun fact, he's having like an existential crisis where he's noticing coincidences in his life. And so he hires a couple of professionals to help him investigate these coincidences. And these investigators are portrayed by Dustin Hoffman and Lily Tomlin. And the cast is amazing. I mean, you got Mark Wahlberg, Naomi Watts, and it's just a really, really funny movie that kind of like digs into the psychology of people and their motivations and what makes you happy in life. In other words, it's like he's trying to figure out the meaning of life, which aren't we all, And so the approach of this movie, it's just chaotic. And I can't even put it into words, but it's one of those movies that I watch over and over again, and I never get sick of it. And I love the soundtrack. When a movie's got a great soundtrack, it's got a really lighthearted, fun, whoever scored this movie is really brilliant. And I actually took one of the themes of the movie, like one of the songs from the soundtrack, and I rapped over it, a Rage Against the Machine cover over this fun, lighthearted instrumental. I'll share it with you someday. It's really fucking cool.
That's awesome. That is awesome, especially when you can gain inspiration. That's always mind blowing to me. Definitely watching. We'll have the posters popping up as we go here, and everyone can see it, and everyone can go dive their toes into the movie pit. And my next one is definitely I'm just gonna jump right into it. It's directed by Wes Craven, one of my all-time favorite films, and it is a constant rotation. But A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah,
I think the whole aspect of that movie, and it's kind of beyond its time if you really think about it, because you got Nancy, who is the hero, and that's what a lot of horror movies that doesn't get credit for, especially in the 80s and stuff like that. They made the woman the hero of these movies. And now it's kind of being played down. Everyone's like, oh, well, we need this diversity now and this. But I'm like, man, this was happening in like the 80s and, with these horror movies and stuff like that. This was happening then. And I love Nancy's character because she goes from this good girl, going to school, has a boyfriend, Johnny Depp, which is best kill scene in a movie when he gets sucked into the bed,
His first movie too.
Yeah. And just iconic. And then just her growing. And then to the end of the movie, when you're like, oh, Nancy is a badass. Freddie, you got your shit coming. And just that character alone of Freddie is terrifying, because it's just like oh shit, if I go to sleep, these dreams, and I already have problems with dreams. I have a lot of problems with dreams. I get too sucked into them and too deep, and I have really bad anxiety afterwards. And I know this movie is not one for therapy for me, but it's one of those movies that I take to heart because I love dreams, but I also hate dreams. And everything about this, and Wes Craven, RIP to the almighty Wes Craven for being ahead of his time with these movies. Amen, brother. And I just like the aspect. And Robert Englund, his portrayal of the Freddy Krueger character was beyond out there, and that's what I loved about it.
The first movie was hardcore. They got kind of cheesy and funny and goofy after that, but that first one was intense.
And anybody who wants to get goosebumps or just get chills, and you go watch this movie, this scene's iconic and it's been all over the place. It's where he reaches out, he's in that, and they're walking down that, they're running away from Freddy, and he stretches his arms out and he's just scratching the walls. And it's just so like, I'm getting tingles just thinking about it because it's just like, holy shit, that thing's coming towards me, Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, if you have not seen this movie, I highly recommend it. It's definitely a part of cinema history, and it will remain part of it'll carry a legacy that a lot of people draw to, from horror aspects to storytelling.
Yeah, I love Wes Craven movies as well, and I own all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And I remember when Freddy's Dead came out in theaters, it had the last like 15 minutes were in 3D, so you had 3D glasses you had to throw on, and that was kind of like on some cutting edge shit back then in the early 90s. And also, I was young enough where I actually lied to my mom about what movie I was going to see when my friend's mom picked me up and took us to the movies. My friend was a delinquent and his mom didn't care that we were going to see a rated R movie, but my mom did. So I had to lie and say I was watching, like, I don't know, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or something.
I got a great story for that towards the end. So,
Okay.
all right, go for it.
My next movie, it's a foreign film, okay? It came out in 2004, and it's called House of Flying Daggers, and it stars the young lady who was also in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. So I know there's a couple. I don't know how to pronounce her name, but there's two. Her name begins with a Z, and her last name begins with a Z. Zai Zhang. I don't know how to pronounce it. She is a hot ticket, let me tell you. And essentially, it's about China back in the Tang Dynasty when they were kind of not doing so hot, and there was all these opposing forces, or I guess, rebel gangs. And there was this gang called the House of Flying Daggers. And so these soldiers, and this is like in the 19th century, so they're all wearing cloaks, and these are sword fighters and just martial artists. And I'm not going to say it's magical like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but it is the way that they fight, and just the way that they're scaling bamboo trees and in the brush in the forest. And the fight scenes are immaculate. They're just mesmerizing. So what it is these two soldiers, they devise a plan because there's a rumor that the leader of the House of Flying Daggers has a blind daughter. And in the local, I don't know what you call it, like a whorehouse or entertainment house where they got the dancing girls, they got this blind dancing girl, and they're like, yeah, I think she has ties with this House of Flying Daggers. So these two soldiers devise a plan, and one of them goes undercover, breaks the blind girl out of her day job to return her back to the House of Flying Daggers, while the other general follows covertly. And it just becomes a big love triangle, and nothing is as it seems, and there's lots of twists and turns. And I've already told you why I love this movie. It's visually amazing. I got a huge crush on the lead actress, and it's almost like on Romeo and Juliet level, tragic love story type of movie. But it also has some of the most amazing fight sequences, like martial art fight sequences I've ever seen in a movie. So House of Flying Daggers, I watch it like religiously. And it's subtitles, so I almost like know what they're saying without even reading it anymore. I've watched it so many times.
I had a huge beef with subtitles before, but my wife watches a lot of Korean movies and stuff like that. So she's got me to actually pay attention. Now I could be like, okay, all right, cool. Now I know what's going on, because I sometimes used to drive me crazy. Like when I went to saw Jet Li's Hero and the big screen, like I was like, up, look at the screen, look at the words, look at the screen, look at the words.
Harder in the theater too, because when you're in the theater, you want to take in all the sights. So why you got to stand there and read on the bottom when you want to take in everything? I mean, it's tough. It is tough. Oh, and by the way, the proper term for whorehouse is brothel. She works in a brothel.
Remember that, folks. The more you know. So this one is near and dear to my heart. It's definitely it was directed by Kyle Newman, screenplay Adam F. Goldberg, Ernest Cline. Fanboys. If you are a huge Star Wars nerd, you should know Fanboys, because Fanboys is the first time I saw this movie. I sat on the couch, got blazed, watched it. As soon as it was over, I played it over again, and I probably played it over again one more time, because it hits all the Star Wars notes in your heart, and all the references to the cameos. And it's a very beautiful story. The episode 1 is on the horizon, because there was a dark time in the Star Wars lore where there was no Star Wars movies, between Return of the Jedi and Phantom Menace. There was that dark period where, there was novels, there was this and that, but there was no movies. Then when George was like, the Phantom Menace is coming, episode 1, the Star Wars nation was like, oh shit. And this movie really captures that. They're a group of 4 friends, and they find out that one of their best friends is dying. So their idea is to break into Skywalker Ranch and see the movie early for him. And so it's just this great adventure. And one of the friends, they kind of like dispersed from each other. So it's about rebuilding friendship, taking this adventure with your friends, taking the journey and taking the risk. And it's just the way it lays out. And with the cameos, I don't want to say the cameos, because I rather somebody watch this movie and be like, oh shit, this person's in this. Oh shit, this person's in this. Because when you get those little moments in this movie with the characters, you're going to be like, oh my gosh. And yes, it's funny. It's adorable. Everything that builds from it. It's just a great homage to being a Star Wars nerd. If you're a hardcore Star Wars nerd, Fanboys is for you. All the characters are great. All the characters are relatable. And once you get to the Phantom Menace part of the movie, and that's towards the end, it has such a great ending that all us Star Wars nerds going into the Phantom Menace was thinking before that movie started rolling. And all our thoughts, and I'm not going to say what they are, because I want people to experience that. And there's that one line at the end of the movie that sums up everything all into one big package. And I can see you smiling, because that one line at the end, you're just like, no shit. Oh my gosh. Play it over again.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I've watched that movie a lot of times, man. It was hard for that movie to get made the way they wrote it, because the studio executives didn't want to have that main character on his deathbed. Like, they wanted to change it so it wasn't that kind of deepness. They wanted to soften up the tone. But I guess the writer, director of the movie, he fought to keep it the way they wrote, and they won. And I'm glad they did, because it feels very genuine.
Yeah, and if you watch the interviews for that movie, they talk about that. They're like, yo, this was going to be a different story than what the studio wanted. But once again, a lot of people, you hold your ground, you make what you want, and you get just pure perfection.
All right, my turn.
Yep.
This movie is extremely difficult to explain, but I'll tell you this. It is probably my favorite movie of the 21st century. I'm so obsessed with this movie, and I tell people about it all the time, and I tell them who's in it, and they're like, huh, really? Like, all these actors are in this movie? And it's like a head scratcher. But this movie is directed by Richard Kelly. Richard Kelly is the gentleman who wrote and directed Donnie Darko. And this movie came out in 2006. It is called Southland Tales. Have you heard of this?
Yes, I have.
Have you seen it?
It's been a minute, but yes.
All right. I am obsessed with Richard Kelly movies. First of all, Donnie Darko would have been on the list if it had not been for this movie, because this movie, it is so confusing. It's like Where's Waldo, except Waldo is a million different things. Every time I watch it, something else pops out and makes me smile and makes the whole movie make more sense. So if I had to explain it, I'd say that The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, he is a guy who has amnesia, and he's been, I guess, roped in with a porn star and this I don't even know like how to define all of these forces fighting against each other. It's a political movement, and then it's like these rebels or separatists, and so they're trying to rig an election. And so the Rock's character is actually married to the daughter of a senator who's running for president. And then there's also a scientist who invented like a perpetual machine that will fuel all troops and technology by just using the power of the ocean. And that guy is played by Booger from Revenge of the Nerds. And I mean, you've got people in this movie from SNL, from Mad TV. It's so bizarre. You've got Justin Timberlake as a soldier with scars on his face that has a musical number where he lip syncs. He's having like a drug-induced fever dream because there's also drugs involved. And man, like, I don't want to spoil anything, but this movie is one of those movies where you have to watch it like 3 or 4 times to even appreciate everything that they're giving you. And there's definitely twists. Kevin Smith plays a role in this movie, kind of uncredited, I think. He's wearing a beard, and you don't even know it's him unless you know. It's so fucking awesome, though. I love Southland Tales. I could probably do a 1 or 2 hour long stream just talking about this one movie.
I would love to do that with you because I definitely want to rewatch that. I want to go back and go through the collection and pull that out.
Let's refresh our memories, take some notes, and let's have a Southland Tales review stream. That would make my day to talk about this movie with someone who actually has seen it. No one's seen this movie. I always bring this movie up and they're like, huh? Never heard of it.
Yeah, this was around when The Rock was like slowly getting in that groove, because like this was like around when he was like, everyone's like, oh, this guy, he can act.
He wasn't being taken seriously yet as an actor. This was early in his career. Yeah.
Yeah. Reminds me of another great movie. It's not on my list, but Be Cool. Remember when Be Cool came out? Everyone's like, oh, shit.
He's great in that. Yeah, come on. The Rock is the man. He should be our fucking president.
Amen. All right. So this movie, oh my gosh. I love this movie. The Prestige, directed by Christopher Nolan. Screenplay by him and his brother Jonathan, starring Hugh Jackman, Christian Bale, has the great late David Bowie in it as Tesla.
Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson, Michael Caine. The cast is just incredible. I remember the first time I saw this movie in the theaters, and I the end of it with the twist and everything, and I was like, wait, what? Holy shit. You know, like my wig was so blown. And this is when Nolan was, you know, because of course he's known for the Batman movies. He's known for having twists now in his movies.
This came in between like the second and third, I think.
It's actually after Batman Begins.
Okay, in between the first and second. My bad.
Yeah. So in like this movie, and with him, he's one of my all-time favorite directors, but he's also one of those people who has this great writing ability to make you take your breath away. And the ending to The Prestige is exactly that. It just all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, what? Oh shit, I can breathe now. It's that great storytelling, and it's about these two magicians on the rise with Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman. They take a turn in character, which is great because it's like you know, and I don't want to say who you're going to root for or who you're not going to root for, but when you watch the movie, you're rooting for one of them. You're like, oh, and then there's a certain point you're like, wait, should I be? You know, it's one of those great like twists in the stories, and then when you get to the end of it, and you're like, oh shit, and it's just this great mystery in your mind. You're trying to unbox it, and when you're watching this movie, you're like, all right, well, and then after seeing it a couple times, it still takes your breath away. Michael Caine starting the movie talking about what the prestige is, and then and his character alone and where he goes in his journey. And Tesla, I got to give it up to David Bowie, because Tesla's one. Yeah, Tesla, his Tesla was great. Also, who was his assistant? Why can't I remember his assistant's name? Gollum.
Oh, and Andy
Yeah,
Sudeikis, or no, that's not how you pronounce it, but
yeah. We're close. Let me see.
yeah, you're right. Gollum from Lord of the Rings. That was his first breakout role.
Andy Serkis.
Circus.
Yeah, Serkis. I was like, I know I had an S with it, but no, his character's great. But those two's chemistry. And I remember the first time I watched the movie, and someone's like, "Oh man, David Bowie was great." I was like, "David, wait, what?" And then I was like, "Oh no, shit, David Bowie!" Like he was just so transforming on the screen that I was just like, "No, that's fucking Tesla." Like everybody plays a certain role, everybody plays a key, and Scarlett Johansson's character is amazing, and all the acting's amazing. Christian Bale.
Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman both play their part like perfectly, and they're like close friends and colleagues that have a falling out, and then one is doing better than the other, and then the tables turn and they're obsessed with finding out how the other one is doing his tricks, and it's like, I need to learn your secrets, you motherfucker. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, then when one gets the trick where he's like, "Wait, how far are you willing to go down that rabbit hole to make sure that you get that secret?"
Christopher Nolan himself is performing a magic trick where the whole movie is like sleight of hands. And then at the end, there is a prestige where you find out, oh shit, this ain't what I thought it was.
Yeah, exactly. And anybody, like, if you want a mind fuck, definitely check out the Prestige, because it is definitely that. And at the end, your breath will be taken away, and you're gonna see a magic show within this movie. And at the end, when the Prestige pays off, you're gonna be so satisfied, because you're gonna be like, "Holy fuck, my mind was rocked," and in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Nice. I felt bad because I didn't get any Christopher Nolan movies on my list, and I almost put Tenet on my list because,
I love that
yeah.
fucking
But
movie.
you know what? The reason I left it off is because there were enough others to be on the list, and I'm still digesting Tenet. I'm still digesting it. I'm still watching it a couple of times over and over again. Technically, it should be on my. It gets an honorable mention.
Same. I will honorably mention it too, because Tenet is one of those movies I was like, "Oh, I love that movie so much." You should get the book. Basically, the behind the scenes. I just picked it up the other day. It's like $50 for the book, but it's just a great read. And also the special features. I would recommend people to watch the movie, watch the special features, watch the movie again, and pay attention.
There's tons of YouTube channels that break down movies and explain the Easter eggs and the confusing endings, and I'm all about that. And I'm watching those videos to explain all the movies, like including The Prestige, and not because I don't understand it myself, but I enjoy those behind the scenes explanations, and especially like director and actor and writer commentary tracks. I love all that shit, behind the scenes stuff.
Oh yeah.
All right. So I told you before we went live that I had a rule with my list, because obviously I'm a cinephile and a movie buff, and I watch way too many movies to narrow down my list to just 10. So I told myself, if I have a movie by a director, I'm only allowed to have one movie by that director. And so this movie here is my pick for the Coen brothers. Okay. And if I didn't restrict myself to this rule, 99% of this list would be Coen brothers movies. Let's be honest. Okay. And if it wasn't for this movie, my pick would have been The Big Lebowski, because that I am the dude. Like I'm just saying, but
The
this
dude
movie,
abides.
yeah, this movie came out in 2013, and it is called Inside Llewyn Davis. Okay, have you seen this movie?
No, I have not.
Okay, let me break this movie down for you. The year is 1961. It's not a true story, but you know how the Coen brothers do. They paint a picture of the time period, and their characters fit into that time period like a glove. So this movie is about a starving artist, a folk singer, and it is Oscar Isaac, who plays Dameron Poe in the new Star Wars movies. And he is down and out. He's talented, and you know what? He really is playing guitar and singing in this movie. He's a talented motherfucker. But his character, it's one of those things where it's like you're following a day in the life of this folk singer. And mind you, this is 1961. So this is right before Bob Dylan made folk music popular. Okay, so this is when they're still just like playing in little basket houses or little dive bars for small audiences for claps and pocket change. And Oscar Isaac's character is basically couch surfing, and he knocked up this chick who's actually dating a different singer. He's just got all kinds of bad luck. He's staying with a professor, friend of his that lets him, sleep over on this couch. And then he accidentally lets the cat out, and he has to carry this cat around because he can't lose his friend's cat. And I guess without being too long-winded about it, I feel for this guy because it's a hard life to be a performer and an entertainer. But he also had a partner who committed suicide. And so he used to be a duo, and now he's just on his own. That kind of haunts him throughout the movie. The Coen brothers are masterful in their writing, and every actor in this movie delivers the gold. You got John Goodman playing a jazz musician who's a heroin addict, and he's just really fucking perfect. And there's a scene with Oscar Isaac, Justin Timberlake, and Adam Driver, and they're recording a song about outer space. And this is like, back when John F. Kennedy just approved the space program. And this movie actually came out right around the same time as The Force Awakens. So you literally have Poe Dameron and Kylo Ren and Justin Timberlake singing a song about outer space together. It's fucking hilarious.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love this movie. I watch it on repeat. The music is amazing, and it has this kind of prestige at the end that's like a gotcha moment. It's only if you care about the characters and you're into movies like this that are real character studies. I don't know if anyone else is going to be as blown away by it as I am, but I'm obsessed with Coen Brother movies. And No Country for Old Men could have been on the list. Oh Brother, We're Out There could have been on the list. For the majority of my life, Raising Arizona has been my favorite movie. Nicolas Cage, one of his early roles, one of the best comedies ever made. So I'm just saying, like, the Coen brothers could have been this whole fucking list, but this is the one that I am drawn to the most right now, this time in my life.
I all right. Well, I know what I'm doing after this. Just real quick side note. So with No Country for Old Men, I have beef towards the end of that movie. I like the movie to a certain point. Then that towards the end, it was like, wait a minute. Like I don't know why, but my attitude in that movie flipped, and I feel like that was just the way it was turned in the story. But I just hate the ending so much, but I love the movie so much. So
I'm not going to argue with that. That movie has a controversial ending, but I can tell you this. When that movie came out and I first got it on DVD, I would watch it so much that I think that might have contributed to my girlfriend leaving me. She was like, "Really? Again, TJ?"
I remember those days when I had those moments. All right, so my next one, constant and just one of my favorites to have on repeat, 8 Mile, featuring none other than Eminem, directed by Curtis Hanson, came out in 2002. This movie, more or less, like a lot of these movies that they're on constant repeat, but they also have stories to them. And that's what I love about movies, especially stories in my life. Like I remember my uncle made me ditch school to go take me to this movie because I was a huge Eminem mark. And when I saw this movie and fell in love with the idea of battle rap. And when this movie dropped, everybody wanted the battle rap. Everybody was into battle rapping after this movie. I'll go into the movie here in a bit, but the best part of this movie for me, story wise, is my first battle I had with some kid in middle school. He was like, "Yo, you want to battle?" Blah, blah, blah. I was like, "Fine." And I was rapping at the time, and I was writing rhymes, and he starts coming at me, and all of a sudden I'm like, "The fuck, man! I've heard these lyrics before. I've heard these lyrics before." And he's like coming at me, and the whole crowd's like, "Oh, oh!" He was repeating the lyrics, "Please don't hate me," by the Insane Clown Posse. And then I stopped for a moment. I was like, "Yo, wait a minute, you're stealing ICP's lyrics." And he was just like, "No, I'm not." And I was like, "Fuck you." And I pulled the CD out right then and there. And everyone was like, "Oh,
Busted.
and I didn't fucking bust it because like he was coming at me. I was like, "Man, you're talking about my mom a lot." I was like, "I've heard this song before." And then I was like, "Oh shit, you bitch." It's one of my favorites because he was "Please Don't Hate Me" by ICP. But this movie definitely is like, you got a character like B Rabbit who is trying to take that one moment to do something, but he has to go through these obstacles with his mom, Michael Shannon. Kim Basinger plays his mom, but fucking Michael Shannon, and they went to school with him. You got Kai Pfeiffer in this movie, who's a great character, Future, and all these supporting, and King Gordy. Like, if you really want to deep into it, King Gordy is in this movie. It's a split second, but he's on the radio interview and he's talking about representing Detroit and whatnot. And Brittany Murphy, R.I.P. This was one of the few last films, that she did before she passed. It's a cool story. And Exhibit's in this movie. Exhibit, there's just such great scenes that you can repeat, like the end battle scene alone. The battle with the free world, it's such a great battle because I remember being in that theater and people who don't even like hip hop or rap, like my mom, and them seeing this movie and be like, "Oh, we got this, son," "Oh," and then like little scenes like when they're at the food truck and they start battling out there. That movie is always on rotation because my love for hip hop, my love for play on words, my love for hits, my love for getting the metaphor out there, and realizing too, like, what's great about the ending of this movie is like it leaves you with an open mind with like, where does B Rabbit go now? What's his next destination? Because it's such an ending where it's just like, okay, the hero won. It's not spoiling anything. And then when the movie ends, you're like, you kind of leaves it up to your own imagination of where this character is going to go, because he's gone through so much. He goes through the trials, the tribulations, and this and that, and he gets to the final battle, if you will. And then when the movie's over, you start thinking, I'm like, oh man, like maybe he did this, or maybe he did this. What was his next one? Did he continue, battling? Did he continue doing this? And I really like the aspect, and I'm really about underdog stories, and this movie's very underdog. It's a white kid in a predominant Black culture and the rise, especially in Detroit and 8 Mile itself. And then, everyone's like, this white boy can spit. And then they find out this white boy can spit. That was a time and period in hip hop where it was different. It was hard for people to get in the game because everyone's like, people hate on Vanilla Ice. I don't know why. I love Vanilla. I love Vanilla Ice so much, man. But put a lot of bad taste in people's mouths because he was one of those influences that made, because you got Beastie Boys and stuff like that. But to have that predominant of like a character who can, especially introducing everybody to the scene of battling on the East Coast.
You say everyone hates Vanilla Ice. I would say that Vanilla Ice was loved by the masses. Who hates Vanilla Ice is the hip hop community themselves, swooping in and just reaping the benefits of being mainstream, whereas they are all kind of on their grind trying to develop this culture. And even today, this is actually a topic of debate with Snoop Dogg and Eminem's little feud going on. Like, I've been watching interviews
of me too.
Joe Budden podcast, and they're talking about it, how it's almost like a culture vulture situation, like how Elvis came in and started taking things from Black music and making it mainstream. It's all related, man.
Great pull. Yeah, and that's what I meant about more of the hip hop community, and more of the hip hop community not really partaking into Vanilla Ice. And I think Vanilla Ice is a true talent to this day.
Vanilla Ice is the shit. There's no denying.
Yeah. And so that's why I like this movie, just because you're looking at both sides of hip hop, and I like the fact too, because I love the East Coast. Like, I love East Coast hip hop. I love Detroit music because Detroit, is definitely a symbolism of that grime, gritty, you got to fight your way with your words, and as a honorable mention, if anybody wants to see a movie about battling, if you've seen this movie Bodied, that was produced by Eminem, holy shit. If you watch 8 Mile, then watch Bodied, you'll have a good day in learning some hip hop lessons.
Never heard of that. Never heard of Bodied.
Yeah, check it out. If you like battling, you like battle raps, and you like the underdog, it's a great story.
All right, fair. I'll definitely check it out because I'll watch any movie once. All right, my turn. My next movie is from 2019, so it's recent, and it's produced by Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele, I think, is mostly known for comedy, right, with Key and Peele skits and whatnot. But he has gone on to direct a few movies, and he also revitalized the Twilight Zone series. I don't know if you ever saw his Twilight Zone season 1. It's fucking awesome. So this movie is called Us, and it is a story of a family. Well, I guess it starts off with a flashback. Okay, little girl with her parents at the carnival, at the fair, like on a beach, and she kind of wanders off and stumbles into this little cavern or whatever, where she sees another little girl that looks just like her. And have you seen this movie?
Oh yeah.
So, and then it kind of just leaves you with that. And now in the current day, you can tell this little girl is grown up. She's a woman. She's married. She has her own children, and they're going on vacation back to the same place where she had this experience. And through flashbacks, you learn more about what's going on with her fears, and she's very overprotective of her kids. You can tell because she knows that some sketchy shit went down when she was a child, but we don't really know the full story. And by the way, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but the main character here, the mom, her name is Lupita, and then her last name is like Nyong'o or something. She was a breakout star on The Force Awakens by portraying Maz Kanata, the little alien woman that Han Solo is like BFFs with. She has a crush on Chewbacca, and she did the whole like facial recognition thing just like Andy Serkis did for Gollum. She did that to portray that character, and she is beautiful. And I'm telling you, this movie, it goes fucking dark because out of nowhere, the family is approached or they're assaulted and held captive by doppelgangers. Every single member of the family, the mom, the dad, the son, the daughter, is looking right at another human being that looks just like them, and they are wicked. And they're almost like clones, or they're kind of like the people under the stairs, or, the eyes in the hills, or, so you don't know what's going on, but they are out for blood. And then you realize that it's not just them. Everybody has a doppelganger, and they all came out of the woodwork for some kind of reckoning. And it's just a horror movie with a twist. And it is so fun. The music is amazing. The tension built is amazing. And I love the way it ends on this almost ambiguous feeling of like, wow, what are the repercussions? And this was just focused on one family. But then you realize like maybe the whole world is now like, you just don't know what's going to happen. It leaves you with that open-ended feeling. Without spoiling anything, this movie is a roller coaster, and it sold me on Jordan Peele. I was like, oh shit, this guy's doing Twilight Zone. This is like a Twilight Zone episode, 2 hour long. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I seen that movie in theaters. It was like, oh shit, and I have my ties with that movie, but that movie is one of those great things for cinemas because you can debate it with somebody. You can be like, well, what was this? And you can talk about this. And when the twist comes, you're like, well, what about this and this? It's a great film to watch with the homies or with yourself, and then have that conversation of like, oh shit, what just happened?
You and me need to have a spoiler-filled conversation about this movie, I think.
Most def, I have a love-hate relationship with the movie. And it is crazy. It is the build and tension. I agree with everything you just said.
There are a few things that I feel like I'm a little confused about a few of the details, and I'm not 100% sure about the movie. But I kind of like that about movies sometimes, where it leaves me with more questions than I had before I watched it. And that's why I go back and watch it again. And if it wasn't for the amazing portrayals, like just the great acting, and I mean, it's like with the little kid, like they mirror each other, right? So the daughter, she's an athlete, and her doppelganger, she's fast as fuck, and it's like, what if you had to battle yourself, except a demented, evil, bloodthirsty version of yourself? That's fucking scary, man. I don't want to meet my doppelganger. Did you hear that line I said in Ghost Breath, my song with Matty Saifa? I said, Beastmaster's doppelganger wants all the smoke. I think it was probably influenced by that movie.
Fucking dope. Yeah, it definitely watch Us if you have not seen it. Definitely, that's a must on a lot of lists.
The music in that movie is great. It's like creepy, and then the dancing at the end, or the fight with the dancing. Oh, it's so fucking cool.
This next movie is storytelling and taking something old and making it new and refreshing. I'm talking about the 2009 Star Trek movie directed by J.J. Abrams. This movie, I remember, like, I'm not a hardcore Trekkie by any means, but I know and respect Star Trek. And I remember when this movie was coming around, a lot of hardcore Trek. Oh, JJ's gonna ruin it, this and that. What's gonna happen? And after that movie was done and over with, and even with most hardcore Trekkie I could sit with, they're like, that was fucking brilliant. It's one of those great stories where he took this franchise, and there's a nice twist to it, to where the book is open. He rewrote the book without rewriting the book, but he rewrote the book to where at the ending you're like, oh, your imagination can take you wherever you want to go. Those are one of those rare instances in a franchise film where I was like, oh shit, from a storytelling perspective, that is brilliant.
He found a way to revitalize that franchise in the same timeline, but yet not in the same timeline. He did it in the plot.
Yeah. And because when you get old Spock, you get kind of confused. And then when that kind of plays in, you're like, oh, and Chris Pine's portrayal of Kirk is so great.
And rest in peace, Leonard Nimoy, coming through with his classic character,
Yeah, Zachary Quinto as Spock, spot on. Carl Urban as McCoy. Anton Yelchin as Chevok.
Oh, another one too soon, man. Oh.
Yeah, and Simon Pegg as Scotty. Come on, yeah. Zoe Saldana as Uhura. Like, the cast is stellar. And like, if you were gonna go recast a new Star Trek series, you can go OG. You would cast these actors to play those characters. And it's one of those great, I don't know, man. Like, now I want to go watch it because I'm just like, fuck, it's been sitting on the shelf and eyeballing me because I haven't seen it since last month. I'm just like, it's just one of those great movies that you can just get lost in.
That is a great movie, man. And I was excited for it because I'm a huge Lost fan. So I'm like a J.J. Abrams mark. Like, I'll watch what he puts out. And even if he does use too much lens flare, whatever.
And it's beautifully shot, especially, this is not a spoiler, but there's a part where they're on the ice planet. And this great creature comes out after Kirk, and it just feels like Star Trek. It feels like, OG original series. And that's what I really liked about it. And he has such respect for characters that I think this is a very character-driven movie. And the plot alone, too, is pretty cool. And, Chris Hemsworth, the little tidbits of like, it was like, what should we name him? James Tiberius Kirk and Tiberius, and that's a terrible name. It's just such great. And even if you're not a Star Trek fan by any means, it's just such a fun movie. And when the twist happens, even the non-sci-fi fans would be like, Oh, that's pretty fucking cool. And I know he did Into Darkness, and Into Darkness was okay. I like Beyond more than Into Darkness. And I know he didn't direct the third movie, but he did the second one. And the only thing I didn't like about the second one was he was trying, because JJ's very mysterious. He likes to be mysterious with everything he does with storytelling. And in the second one, he's like, it's not Khan. I swear to you guys, it's Khan, huh? No, it's not Khan by
Yeah,
any stretch. And his
MO. You know, he did that with Lost. He was like, "I promise you guys, this isn't what's going on on the islands."
well, yeah, Lost is great. If you want something to binge, I would definitely recommend Lost. What number we're on?
I got 3 more movies left, so that would
Cool.
be 7.
Okay.
All right, my number 7 is another movie from 2019, and it's a new director by the name of Ari Aster. He's only got 2 movies under his belt. The first one was called Hereditary, horror movie, and this movie is called Midsummer. And how do I describe this movie? It's about a girl who loses her family to a murder suicide that her sister basically kills their parents and then kills herself. Okay, so she's her whole world is falling apart, and she has a boyfriend who kind of seems like he not even kind of he straight up is like a dick. He's insensitive. You can tell that he wants out of the relationship before he even finds out about this tragedy. And so he just, out of obligation, like, oh, I can't break up with you now because you're going through a travesty. So he just kind of like goes through the motions. And then his buddies, they all plan this trip to go to Sweden for the summer to write their thesis papers. And he kind of like a snake didn't tell his girlfriend he was doing it, and then he ends up inviting her to go with. And when they go, they are in the deep outer rim of society, where it is like a community of pagan cult members that basically are living their lives as if it was 300 years ago, like praying to gods that you read about in Norse mythology, doing like human sacrifices and all sorts of things that seem crazy to us, but to them it's just normal. And so you're experiencing everything through the eyes of these Americans that have been roped into this experience, and it slowly like goes from carefree and fun to a complete nightmare. And it's all about the girl. The actress's name is Florence Poe, and she's awesome. She's brilliant in the movie. She's a new actress. I can't wait to see her in the new. What's Scarlett Johansson's character's name in the Marvel universe? It's Black
Natasha Romanoff. Yeah,
no,
Black Widow.
Widow. So that Black Widow movie that's coming out, Florence Poe is going to be in it. I can't wait to see her as a superhero or maybe a supervillain. Who knows what role she's playing? Maybe they're going to have a falling out. You know, I mean, it's going to be a girl fight. But yo, Midsummer, I eat it up. I'm Norwegian. All 4 of my grandparents were born in Norway, and so the Scandinavian heritage and the pageantry of selecting a May Queen. It's all about choosing their queen for the next 9 years or whatever. It's like a waking nightmare. It's so brilliantly written. It's basically like a breakup movie, but told through the lens of a fish out of water with all this pagan cult-like behavior, and it's just super creepy. The way that there is a very subtle CGI used to put, because they take psychedelics in the movie, so there's some trippy stuff going on, and yeah, it gets crazy. It's a real fun trip. Midsummer.
I still need to see that. So
yeah.
So I'm gonna just jump right on into this one. I hope you know this one, and I know you probably do. Equilibrium with Christian Bale. This directed by Kurt Wimmer. This movie came out in 2002. And Equilibrium, have you seen it?
I have seen it. It's been a long time, but I saw it way back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, and the idea of culture and everything about culture being ripped from humanity and taking pills to, you know, and this story is really cool because it's about the government taking away culture and art and dumbing us down to knowing only one way, one path. And Christian Bale's character, he's very by the rules. He's by the book. There's no culture. There's no, we can't be reading because that's not what, we destroy that. It just dives deep into the mind of like, what if we turn into a society where culture's taken away, where art's taken away, music's taken away, and you have to live in this world and just be the same as everybody else. And what's really crazy about the houses or apartments is they're blank, pure white, and it's just this crazy illuminating. Just when you look at it, you're like, oh shit, I don't want to live like that, because my walls are filled with color, and I got Star Wars everywhere, I got action figures. But to live in this society where they're like, no, you can't have that, and the bad guy, Tay Diggs, he plays the opposite. He's more by the books, and then you get to see Christian Bale's character kind of just grow, and because of his partner being killed. And then the fighting alone in this movie is so good, with the way they fight with the swords, the way they fight with the guns. And it's just a fun movie that I feel like it should be bigger than it was when it came out. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Equilibrium should be up there with like The Matrix and up there with a lot of mainstream sci-fi movies. And I think Equilibrium is such a well done story and such well done action and well done, what it's like going to be in the future and stuff like that. I just feel like Equilibrium's slept on in many ways.
I feel like you and me should do a part 2 of this video, this presentation, and do 10 more movies, because I feel that way about so many movies, man. There's so many movies out there that I feel are amazing that just didn't get their due props or credit, And I admit I need to go back and rewatch that. I'm not really remembering how awesome it is. I know I've seen it. You've inspired me to go pay that one another fucking view.
Oh yeah. And what's crazy is I'm looking here at my notes. Had a $20 million budget, and in the box office it only brought home 5.3 million.
Ouch. Yeah, that's why no one heard about it.
You next, sir.
All right. So listen, this is the second to last movie on my list. I've been doing mine in chronological order. So this one is also from 2019. And I'm just going to say that because I limit myself to one movie per director, I had to choose between Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill, Volume 1 and 2, right? I chose to go with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is Quentin Tarantino's magnum opus as a director. He did such a good job with this movie. Everybody involved, it's 5 stars across the board. I'll tell you this, the lead actors are the biggest fucking actors today. You got Leonardo DiCaprio and you got Brad Pitt and you got Margot Robbie. And they're depicting a time period that is gone down in history because the Manson family, right? Charlie Manson and the family, they, on some fuck shit, went and murdered the up and coming actress, Sharon Tate. Margot Robbie plays Sharon Tate in this movie. And this movie isn't even about her. It's about her neighbor. And her neighbor, Leonardo DiCaprio, is an actor who is kind of like in his later years, and he used to be big on TV playing cowboy roles, and now he's kind of like having a hard time finding his place in the new Hollywood, because all of a sudden there's hotter, newer movies and actors, and Roman Polanski just happens to be his neighbor, who has the #1 movie out right at that moment, which is Rosemary's Baby. And so he's all excited because he's like, oh, can you believe that? My neighbor who just moved in is Roman Polanski, and Brad Pitt plays his stunt double. But lately, he's really just his chauffeur, his right hand man. He helps him out. He fixes his TV, antenna. And there are so many things that happen in this movie. It's a pure Quentin Tarantino esque roller coaster with just a whole plethora of characters, and it does something in a similar style of Inglorious Bastards, where it takes a moment in history and it flips it on its head. So Inglorious Bastards takes World War II and it changes the way World War II went down. This movie takes the Manson murders and it kind of changes the way it goes down. So it's like it makes you think that it's heading towards, you think you know what's going to happen. But then Quentin Tarantino says, no, what if their neighbor and his stunt double got involved and then things change? Without spoiling it, I'm just saying that it just hits in all the right ways. For me, it's one of those movies that I know I'm going to continue to watch over and over again, just like I do with all his other movies. This easily could have been the 9 Quentin Tarantino movies plus one other favorite movie of mine from someone else, because we're only doing 10.
When we broke down this concept of 10, it's just like, I tried to pick my list. I tried to pick movies that are on constant rotation for one, and not the obvious ones. I didn't want to be like Star Wars.
It really could have been Pulp Fiction, because Pulp Fiction is a movie that I've been watching religiously at least once a year since it came fucking out in 95. So I know it like the back of my hand. But I'm telling you, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a feel-good movie. And it is Brad Pitt's best role I've ever seen him.
I can agree.
He shines in this movie, and I'm a huge fan anyways, but I'm just saying he has never been better than he is in this fight. He steals the fucking show. And it's actually Leonardo DiCaprio's movie. He's the main character. We could do a whole fucking 2-hour live stream just about this movie. And I could talk about Quentin Tarantino movies till the cows come home. But this is currently the movie of his that I'm obsessed with because it's still fresh. It's only a couple of years old. And it really is a standout movie in his catalog. Supposedly, he's only doing one more. And I hear tell he's actually doing a Star Trek fucking reboot.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah. Like a rated R Star Trek Quentin Tarantino movie. Wouldn't that be badass?
Hey, bring it on. I'm all about it.
Oh, man. Love Quentin. This movie should have been directed by Quentin Tarantino, but this movie here is a mind fuck. Also, it digs deep into like a movie that I watched constantly as a kid, and I still watch it now just because it's a fun movie. Motorama. You heard of this?
You gotta. I honestly don't know. What'd you say? Motorama?
Yeah.
I guess not. Wow.
Yeah, it came out in '93, and it's about this kid named Gus. He's has an abusive household, and in the starting of the movie, right out the bat, he basically runs away from home, steals his dad's really nice car. Then he gets into this game called Motorama, to where he has to collect all these cards, and he gets the big prize. And it's just his journey, and it's a very adult film. There's a point where he's like trying to siphon gas out of people's tanks, and he's trying to survive, and he's all alone. It's such a crazy road movie. The main character, Jordan Christopher, he plays Gus, does such an amazing job. He feels like an adult, like you're watching an adult, even though he's a kid. This also has Drew Barrymore in it for a split second, but that's the way they sold the movie on the cover, because they have her in the background. He's on top of his car. He's got an eye patch on because there's a reason why he has an eye patch on in the movie.
They did the same thing with Scream. They put her on the cover of the poster of Scream, and she's in the beginning of Scream, and they sold that movie with Drew Barrymore being like the girl when she like ends up dying in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, like I said, he's standing on the car. You got the hero, the main person of the story. Then in the background, you got Drew Barrymore, and it's just funny because when you watch the movie, you're like, She has nothing to fucking do with this whatsoever. But then when you get to the end, you're like, wait, what? Oh shit. And has this really subtle sweetness about it to where he's obsessed with collecting all these cards. This again, the cards have to spell out Motorama. So he goes to the ends of the earth and he finds out too while he's playing the game is the game's really, really old. So not many people are playing it. So he's going to obscure areas and gas stations just to find these cards and trying to put all the letters together to spell Motorama. And once he gets all the cards together, and that's not even a spoiler, once he gets all the cards together, what happens after that when he tries to take it to go get the payoff of it, you're like, wait, fuck. And then it just goes into the spiral and the way the movie, holy, like, everybody, I recommend it to you. The Moto Rama came out in let's see, '93. It did terrible at the box office, like $10,535. Directed by Barry Shill, screenplay by Joseph Minion. So Motorama, I highly recommend it, especially for you diving deep in the movies. I think you would enjoy. It's a great road story. It's also a great mind fuck.
I wouldn't be surprised if I saw it back then and just forgot about it because I don't remember this movie. I'm gonna have to check this out on your recommendation.
Cool stuff. Now we're in the grand finale.
Yeah, my last movie made a lot of waves because, well, it's an Adam Sandler movie, but it's not an Adam Sandler movie. It's called Uncut Gems.
I still need to see that.
All right, so check it out. Here's the deal with Uncut Gems. This is kind of like the Coen brothers. Is these two brothers that made this movie? They're the Sadafi brothers, okay? And fun fact, they've made a couple of movies before this one. Very indie. You can tell it's them because they have a style about their movie. It's very raw, and the soundtrack is very like spacey, I would say. And the two movies they made before this actually has Necro, the rapper, acting in them. I don't know if you know this, but Necro is an actor and he's been in a few movies and he's been in two of the Sadafi brother movies. The one they made right before this is called Good Times and it stars Robert Pattinson. You know Robert Pattinson from Harry Potter, Batman. Yeah, we haven't seen Batman yet.
Yeah.
Listen, I was never a fan of Robert Pattinson until I saw Good Time. And I was like, holy shit, this guy can act. And these guys can write and direct. And when I saw Uncut Gems, holy shit. Now, maybe this movie isn't for everybody, but let me try to explain this to you. Adam Sandler is playing a Jew, all right? He is Jewish, okay? So he's perfect for the role. But he's playing a jeweler, right? Someone who sells watches and diamonds and rings. And he's also a gambling addict. So, you know, he's got money, he's got thrown away money, he's got a wife and kids, he's got a mistress, and he is a hustler. But he's also kind of a buffoon. Like he's getting beat up. He owes money to his brother-in-law. The whole movie, he is just trying to fucking make it happen. It's just always beyond the horizon for him. And every step of the way, like if you ever, I've never gambled like that. And I don't know what it's like to work with bookies. But just watching this movie, it's almost like watching a documentary, like a day in the life of a guy who is wheeling and dealing, you know, and he's got his jewel shop. And then he's got a real basketball star, Kevin Arnett. Is that his name? I think his name is Kevin Arnett. Well, anyways, he's a Celtics player. He sees this jewel that's like from Ethiopia that's like extremely rare and really expensive. And, you know, Adam Sandler's character found a way to get it. And he plans on auctioning off this jewel. And this is like his big payday, you know? It's just one of those things where it's like everything goes wrong that can go wrong. And you're on the edge of your seat the whole fucking movie. The ending is crazy. Look, this movie is not for everyone, but I am fascinated by it. You know, the homie Callie Green Too Fresh, he watched it and he was like, this is the worst Adam Sandler movie ever. And I'm like, no, this is the best Adam Sandler movie ever. But it's not an Adam Sandler movie. It's a Sadafi brother movie. I highly recommend this one, and I recommend Good Time, and only if you can handle high anxiety, extreme realism, like a lot of violence and a lot of awkwardness and just gritty, confrontational, emotional roller coaster experiences with a weird soundtrack. It's fucking hypnotizing to me. And he was up for a fucking Oscar. He didn't get it. He was like nominated or at least recommended for it because he was so good in this movie. He really was. Adam Sandler can act. He really can.
Oh, yeah.
It's not all fucking Little Nicky and Waterboy.
Well, you know, if you go down his track list, like Funny People.
It's different than Funny People. In Funny People, he plays like all bummed out, like I got cancer. But in this one, I don't know. He is on one in this movie.
Is it one of those levels above it, like in Punch Drunk Love?
Punch Drunk Love is another example of him actually acting, but I'm telling you, this is his best. It's just so good. And it's not just him. It's the Sadafi brothers. You see, here's the thing. They wrote this story with a different time period and a different basketball star, but they actually use real basketball game footage in the movie because he's gambling on the game and it's part of the plot. And because they couldn't get it made with that actor, like I think they actually wanted who's the basketball player who died in the helicopter last year?
Kobe?
I think they originally wanted Kobe Bryant in the movie, but then they couldn't get him. So the basketball games that they had written the movie with, they had to scratch him and find different games that had the right point spread for the gambling aspect of the movie. And they're like, okay, this game works in the time frame and we can get Kevin Arnett and so we'll get him to be the actor. Like they had to shuffle and rewrite everything to get it just right because it really does coincide with real events in the time. It's fucking brilliant.
All right. Sold.
Yeah, dude, it's a roller coaster, man. And I just love Adam Sandler. But these Sadafi brothers, man, you got to watch Good Time as well. I mean, Robert Pattinson is now like one of my favorite actors. And before that movie, I was like, fuck that dude. Fuck Twilight. I don't give a shit about him. And but now, in this, I him in The Lighthouse and with Willem Dafoe, and I'm like, dude, Robert Pattinson, you are the man. Now you're Batman? Hell yeah. I'm on board.
All right. Okay, Uncut Gems. Okay, on the list. So mine also deals with brothers, directors. Mm-hmm. I recently had them on for an interview for the Christmas special we had. They're the Nelms brothers, and they directed one of my jumped in one of my favorite films. I'm talking about The Fat Man, starring Mel Gibson as Santa Claus. And just such a good take on, because we all seen the Santa Claus movies, and I like the aspect of this movie because it definitely takes you into a different realm of Santa Claus and the way he has to deal with the government. The reason why we send letters off to Santa Claus is because he's actually working for the government, and the letters actually get to the postal service, and he has to make a deal with the government during the off season of Christmas just so he can pay for his fucking bills because he has to feed the elves. He still has to feed the reindeer. He has to keep a roof over his head for him and Mrs. Claus. And you get this one kid who's played by Chance Hurstfield, Billy, who is just a pure little shit. And he gets a piece of coal for Christmas. And he gets so mad. And this kid is so sadistic and twisted. He hires Walton Goggins' character, Jonathan Miller, who's been hunting us all of his life. And he's been collecting items that people gotten from Santa Claus. This kid hires him because he's his one go-to hitman. And he gets this hitman to like here's just a great scene. It's not spoiling anything. He gets second place in the science fair to this one chick. And he gets so mad. He calls his hitman. He goes, kidnaps her, brings her to Billy's house, and Billy goes all psychotic, like he's going to torture her. Doesn't do it, but he's just like, you're going to tell him that you fucking forfeit the science fair project, and you're going to fucking tell them about like he gets so pissed, and he threatens her. I'm just like, this is just a kid, Jesus. So when he gets the coal, the black coal from Santa Claus, he calls Jonathan Miller, and he's like, I need you to fucking kill Santa Claus. And Jonathan Miller's already on this whole level of like trying to find Santa Claus. So he takes the opportunity to be like, I'm going to go hunt the fat man. And so it's just this great buildup. Mel Gibson does as great as Kris Kringle. And you get to the finale of the fat man going against the skinny man in the big epic finale. It's just a fun ride. The elves are fun. The whole government aspect of it, of what he's trying to build for the government. And just seeing this raw, gritty take on Santa Claus. And then when you find out where Santa Claus is actually at, that's sort of a little bit of the twist of the story. And you're like, oh shit, like this could be a thing. This could actually be a thing. And his wife, her name's Ruth, and she's played by Mary Ann Jean Baptiste. And she's so phenomenal as Mrs. Claus. She's so great. Like I said, it's just one of those, it's not my favorite Christmas movie, but it became one of my favorite movies. And it just came out last year. It's fairly new. If you have not seen The Fat Man, I highly recommend it because all the aspects. And if you're a big Christmas nerd, like I love Christmas, and that's why this movie called to me. And when you just watch the trailer alone, that title is like The Fat Man. And like Billy's character in the trailer, he goes, I'm gonna get you, fat man. And then it's just such a great fucking movie. I recommend it to everybody. The Nelms brothers are truly a great set of brothers. They're really nice. They're really awesome. And they just got another series picked up by Hulu. Their filmography is great. And the story behind The Fat Man is awesome as well. And they've been working on this movie for like 15 years, the script. Wow. Yeah.
I appreciate that as a movie buff. But I haven't seen this movie. I haven't even really heard about this movie. The only thing I knew about this movie is I saw it pop up and I saw it starred Mel Gibson. And I admit I completely wrote it off. I was like, it's another B-level Mel Gibson movie that I don't care about. And I didn't even watch the trailer. So you have completely piqued my interest on this. I've never heard anyone talk about this movie before. And I didn't even realize that the Fat Man had a correlation with Santa. Like I didn't look into it. So I had no idea it was a Christmas movie.
Yeah, so there's mine. And like I said, I did definitely wanted to dive in, and I'm glad you dived in on some great titles, and I dived in on some great titles. Like one of the things I took off my list was Avengers Endgame, because that movie's just fucking phenomenal, beyond phenomenal, from writing to acting. But it was like, that's too obvious. Like I wanted to dive in deep and get my, gritty, and I want to do films that we as movie buffs watch and love, and hopefully this gets people to be like, oh shit, I need to watch these movies. And if you've seen these movies, or if you've not seen these movies, leave a comment below. Describe your feeling about these movies. They're highly recommended from both of us. And you've seen how we talked about these movies. So I hope everybody draws some inspiration to go sit on your ass, get some popcorn, get some Faygo, and watch some movies.
Hell yeah. I'm definitely checking out the movies you mentioned that I either have forgotten about or haven't seen. And I'm looking forward to that. So this has been really fun, man. Hey, thank you for inviting me to join you. This has been a blast. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for coming on. But before we get out of here, we have a saying. When in doubt, fuck your couch. And with every guest, we like to say that. So I set it up as, all right, y'all, we're out of here. So when in doubt, then me and you at the same time will say, fuck your couch. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, y'all. Well, we're out of here. Much love to Beastmaster. It's a pleasure and it's an honor. We got to do this again sometime. But definitely check it out. I'll have all the links for Beastmaster in the description below, so you can go check out his show, the Beastmaster Show. That's every Saturday. Go show some love to Carnival Spirits. It's great content over there. Go show nothing but love and check out the movies we've listed. All right, y'all. So we're gonna have to get out of here. And when in doubt,
Fuck your couch.
fuck your couch. That's right. All right, y'all.